Good afternoon. This is Ryan Morales with Florida One News. We have a very special guest today. We have the Honorable Geraldine Thompson joining us today, and she'll be actually letting us know a few things about what's going on up in Tallahassee. Miss Geraldine Thompson.
Good afternoon. I am glad to be here.
Pleasure, pleasure. And if you could let us know exactly what district you cover, so that way people actually know how important you are to us here in Central Florida.
I represent House District 44, which is West Orange County. The hospitality industry is a major part of my district. Universal Studios, Walt Disney, International Drive, resort hotels, etc. And I cover the bedroom communities of Winter Garden and Ocoee, Windermere, Dr. Phillips, etc. So West Orange County.
Which is right next to me. I'm over here in Lake County, so you're just one district right over from me.
Absolutely. And I have spent quite a bit of time in Lake County helping people there who didn't want a Confederate statue brought to Lake County, but couldn't get any of the elected leaders there to advocate for them. And so they borrowed a person from Orange County.
And we thank you for that. Believe me, we really do. I was there when this all happened, so we thank you for that. So real quickly, I know this session has been one of those really crazy sessions again here in Florida. And we just wanted to ask everybody, especially you, what sort of bills are you working on this session that that you're really behind, and that you feel animated about really getting people behind your bills. So what particular bills are you in the process of working on?
I have a bill that is currently still in bill drafting that addresses the high levels of toxic mold that we're now beginning to see in Florida, given climate change and the very high humidity and more severe hurricanes. So we're seeing toxic mold that is making people ill. And if you have it in the place where you live, it can come through your air conditioning system. The spores can travel. You have respiratory problems. And so I have a bill in drafting. I think this is a bipartisan issue. So I'll be looking for a Republican Senate sponsor as soon as the bill comes out of bill drafting. But I think it's something that we have to address. And given the climate that we are operating in, where people are talking about critical race theory, I am sponsoring again a bill that deals with required instruction on the history of the Holocaust and African American history, which became a requirement in all 67 counties in 1994, 27 years ago, but it has not been consistently implemented. And the difference between this bill, what I'm advocating for in this bill, and critical race theory is that critical race theory takes a particular position and says that race has been a factor in mass incarceration, in our healthcare system and healthcare disparities, in lack of educational attainment. So they advance a particular position. This history that I'm talking about, the Holocaust and African American history, presents facts and allows students to draw their own conclusions. So I'll be pushing to make sure that we follow the law, which was implemented and passed 27 years ago, but is not being done. And you may remember the situation in Palm Beach County where a parent called the principal and said, "How are you teaching the history of the Holocaust?" And the principal said he wasn't sure that the Holocaust ever occurred. So we can't have bills and things in law that we're not following.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm also filing a bill again to deal with elections, trying to reverse some of the just really restrictive use of drop boxes that we saw that went into effect last session. Things that are just really egregious, such as not providing food and water to people when they stand in line. So if you're going to restrict drop boxes, you're going to require a whole lot of identification, even to get a vote by mail ballot, you're going to contribute to lines. And now you're saying you can't even provide a slice of pizza or a cold bottle of water while people are standing in line. And this is counter to what we have in Florida statute that requires that if you leave an animal outside for prolonged periods of time, you must provide food and water.
Yep.
So we're treating voters less humanely than we would treat animals. And I just think it's terrible. So I have an elections bill to try to reverse some of that. I don't know how far that bill will go, but I have to give it my best effort. And then I am filing a bill again to expand Medicaid. When I describe my district, you have to understand that with the pandemic, a lot of people lost their jobs through no fault of their own, and many of them lost their health care coverage when they lost their employment. And so we had lots of people going to emergency rooms because they had no health care. And that is the most expensive form of health care that you can get. It's not free. The physicians have to be paid, the overhead, the utilities, any medication, all of that has to be paid. So we need to expand Medicaid, which would cover an additional almost 1 million people in the state of Florida. So I have filed that legislation again. And of course, I'm on the redistricting committee that will be charged to draw some fair lines that we will live with for 10 years. So that's going to be a very important responsibility. The district that I represent, that I just described in West Orange County, has never been represented by a Democrat. The people who represented this district have included individuals like Daniel Webster, Eric Eisnagel, Tom Feeney, Bobby Olszewski,
Oof.
all white male Republicans. And
Yep.
so when I ran for this position in 2018, it was after the Fair Districts amendments were passed. Now the district, which had been so gerrymandered that a Democrat was never competitive, is a fair district, 34% Republican, 33% Democrat, 33% no party affiliate. So I became a possibility in terms of winning the seat, and I won it, flipped it from red to blue in 2018, and held on to it in in 2020. So redistricting is going to be a major, I want to say deal, but just a major undertaking in the 21-22 legislative session.
Yep. And it will be a key factor in how this whole state, continues in its governments, because if we can't flip the state blue in 2022, we're looking at some real trouble up ahead in the future. Talking about trouble, I know we have HB 167, which is the anti-abortion bill by Representative Webster Barnaby. But are there any other bills other than that one in particular that you think we should be on the lookout for? Because I know a lot of these Republicans try to play the here, we'll flash this one bill over here while we do some other damage over here while you're not looking.
Absolutely. We don't expect that this is going to be the bill. Every year, every session, we deal with an anti-abortion bill. And last session, we dealt with parental consent. Now, in order for a minor to get an abortion, there has to be parental notification. Now it's stronger and it requires consent. And sometimes, unfortunately, young women get pregnant because of incest or rape. And if that is the case, you're saying that the person who's responsible for the pregnancy has to give consent. So every session we deal with some kind of anti-abortion bill. And as you know, the one that you have referenced requires you can't get an abortion after a heartbeat is detected. And most women don't know that they're even pregnant by the time by that time. So I anticipate that there will be some modifications or even a different bill that will be introduced as this year's anti-abortion bill. It's similar to what happened with the Sadowski funds that would go to affordable housing. In the last legislative session, after not sweeping any of the money the session before, this bill that was proposed last session would take only 50% of the Sadowski fund. And that's like saying, I'm going to give you a meal and I know you're hungry and I'm not going to take all of it, but I'm just going to take half of it. And so there were some people who were grateful that it was only half. And so I think what's going to happen is that with this anti-abortion bill, that there will be something less offensive that's going to be introduced, and hopefully people won't be paying attention and they'll say, well, this isn't as bad as the other one. But any anti-abortion bill is bad, and we don't need any bans on women's bodies.
No, and then like I said, it's usually these old men that have no business being up in women's bodies making these decisions either. So, it's terrible that these are the battles that we're still fighting. Meanwhile, we have bigger issues at hand that we have to take care of.
Absolutely. I am still getting calls to my office from people who can't get onto the online unemployment system. They're
Yep.
locked out. If they are lucky enough to get on, they'll be entering all of their information and then they get kicked off. They're locked out. So we really need to be focused on that rather
Mhm.
than, as you have pointed out, some of the culture wars that we're dealing with in Tallahassee.
Yeah, and it's really just nonsense because at the end of the day, we have issues that need to be dealt with immediately, but they're just playing politics with people. I mean, we still have COVID. COVID's still around. I mean, it doesn't mean that it might not be killing as many people as it was earlier on or whatever, but it's still going around. People still need to deal with it. And, you know, they claim it's a hoax. We know it's done some damage to our communities, especially their communities, because towards the end, or up to most recent, it's been killing more of them that don't believe in the vaccine, which tends to be more Republican than Democrat.
Well,
Um,
if you think about vaccines,
mhm,
polio almost was eradicated due to vaccines,
mhm.
and measles, mumps, diphtheria. You don't hear about these diseases anymore
Well, even
because of
even
vaccine.
even even chicken pox. I mean,
Yes,
I had chicken pox as a child. I remember that, but my children and everybody else I know in the last 20 years I haven't heard of any children getting chicken pox or anything like that. Why? Because we got vaccines to take care of that. So,
exactly. And I
you know,
don't see what makes this different than the others that you and I have just talked about. It is seen as a matter of party loyalty to
mhm,
resist the vaccine, and therefore, it is Florida is at the very top in terms of deaths and people contracting COVID-19. And when we see school boards that are threatened with the loss of their wages, their salaries, etc., because they want masks, just a simple mask,
mhm.
which would help. And we know that mask helps reduce the spread of COVID-19. So it's all about politics, unfortunately, and culture wars.
And it's sad because I mean DeSantis is technically, I mean he's committing an offense by defunding these schools the way he's doing. I know at least 3 or 4 different counties that he's already officially put fines and not funding them properly right now, which is terrible because that's our children's education, and that technically is what the government is there for, to make sure that our children get educated. So what he's doing is committing a crime. Um, well, now to talk on something a little bit more positive. I know you have a lot of other friends up in Tallahassee. So does anybody have anything that you feel that you need to be behind 100%, that you feel this is the bill that's going to be a really good game changer for the community or for the people of the state of Florida, that, that you feel that we should all be on the lookout and be behind 100%?
Well, given that it's early and we haven't reached the deadline for submitting bills, it's kind of difficult to know what all is out there. But I certainly want everybody to get behind the expansion of Medicaid.
That makes sense. That makes sense, especially because we want to make sure that it includes dental, visual, and hearing. Those are
Yes,
basic things that people, I mean, that our head is attached to our body. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't take care of it, right? So,
right.
and people's smiles are very important, especially when it comes to finding a job. I know lots of people that have trouble finding work because they just have bad teeth, and that makes a difference. If you could help somebody out and get them a job just because of fixing something as minor as that, that's a life-changing thing for most people. So,
And it's a health issue as well as an esteem issue that you're
mhm,
talking about, how a person views themselves
yep.
in terms of their self-image. And that needs to be addressed as well.
Correct. And then the hearing thing, I know it's frustrating. I have friends that are deaf, and they, communication is so tough for them once in a while, especially with the mask. They couldn't read lips like they used to, so it made it really hard for them. So it's just a lot of these things need to be included so that way we have the medical care for these folks to be able to be taken care of. Real quickly, where can folk find information about your campaign and where can they donate to you?
Oh, fantastic. They can find me at electgeraldine.com, and they can certainly contribute online. This is a new development. I was seeking reelection to the Florida House, to House District 44, but earlier this week I filed to run to return to the Florida Senate, where I had served from 2012 until 2016. So I'm looking to go back and to take care of some unfinished business that I started in the Florida Senate. But you can still find me at electgeraldine.com.
That is excellent news, and I look forward to seeing your campaign moving forward for Senate election for this 2022. Thank you very much, Geraldine. I know you're a busy lady, and I'd like to get you back to what you're doing. And we thank you very much for everything that you do up in Tallahassee. It's a pleasure to always talk to you, and thank you very much for everything.
Okay, glad to have been on your show. Take care. Bye bye.
Cheers.